Welcome to my house in Utah. I'm really so excited. So excited. Like, I left Flagstaff 2 months ago. Yeah, it feels like I'm
with Christine. She's not doing stuff with the rest of us, or even me.
The truth always comes out, and when it does, it can shatter reputations, destroy carefully built images, and expose the kind of pain most people never see on TV. For years, Sister Wives showed Christine Brown as the cheerful, loyal wife who held the Brown family together, always smiling through the cracks in her heart. But behind that smile was a devastating reality, one that Christine has finally laid bare in her book and in interviews: her truth about intimacy with Kody Brown. And let me tell you, it's not just awkward or uncomfortable, it's shocking, humiliating, and heartbreaking. Christine's words revealed a man who was selfish, cruel, and completely indifferent to the needs of his wife. That first night, which should have been tender, loving, and full of care, turned into a memory that haunted her for decades. It was a symbol of everything that would follow: rejection, neglect, and emotional warfare disguised as marriage. And here's the part that takes it beyond Christine and Kody. Her honesty doesn't just expose Kody's character, it lifts the curtain on what polygamy really does to women. This isn't just one marriage gone wrong. It's a system built to silence women, to minimize their needs, and to force them into accepting scraps of affection while the man demands loyalty and obedience. Christine's courage in speaking out doesn't just hold Kody accountable, it strikes at the very core of the culture that allowed him to treat her this way for so long. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome back to TLC's Sister Wives Daily. If you're new here, we dive deep into the real stories and hidden truths behind Sister Wives, going beyond what TLC shows us to uncover the pain, the manipulation, and the rare moments of triumph. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I want to hear from you. What do you think about Christine finally exposing Kody? Do you see this as revenge, or as liberation? Or maybe, just maybe, it's both. Christine's revelations are more than personal, they're the ultimate form of justice. For years, fans saw her sidelined, dismissed, and gaslit, while Kody poured his time and energy into Robin and left Christine begging for scraps of attention. But now Christine has taken back the power. By putting her story out there, by describing in detail the humiliation of their intimacy and the years of rejection that followed, she has stripped away every last piece of Kody's carefully crafted public image. He can no longer hide behind the excuses, the manipulations, or the blame games. Christine's words are out there forever, and they hit him where it hurts most: his pride, his masculinity, and his legacy. This isn't just a story about heartbreak, it's about revenge that comes in the form of truth-telling. Christine didn't need to yell, she didn't need to fight, and she didn't need to attack him directly on TV. All she had to do was tell her story, honestly and bravely, and in doing so she delivered a blow that will haunt Kody Brown for the rest of his life. Fans will never see him the same way again. So let's dive deep into this story together, because Christine's courage to expose the darkest parts of her marriage doesn't just change how we see Kody, it forces us to confront the very real damage that polygamy inflicts on women who are told to stay quiet and endure. This is Christine's truth, her revenge, and her freedom, and it's a story we all need to hear. When Christine Brown married Kody, she carried all the dreams and expectations of a young woman raised to believe that polygamy was not only holy, but the ultimate way to prove her devotion to God and her family. She wasn't entering a marriage lightly. She believed she was stepping into a sacred covenant, one where her loyalty, her faith, and her willingness to share a husband would be rewarded with love, spiritual growth, and eternal blessings. Christine was hopeful, excited, and trusting. She had grown up believing that sacrifice would lead to fulfillment, that obedience would earn affection. But the reality hit her hard, and it hit her fast. Christine has since opened up about that first night with Kody, and her words are heartbreaking. Instead of feeling cherished, instead of feeling desired or valued, she felt invisible. Kody's attitude toward intimacy was cold, mechanical, and thoughtless. What should have been a memory of tenderness became the first scar of her marriage. For Christine, it was not just about one night, it was a signal of how little care Kody had for her as a woman, as a partner, and as a human being with needs and feelings. Think about that. A wedding night, a moment meant to seal a lifelong bond, instead left her feeling used and discarded. Christine was young, vulnerable, and deeply invested in making this work. Yet from the very beginning, Kody showed her that his priorities weren't about her comfort or her happiness. His selfishness in those intimate moments wasn't just physical, it was emotional. It told her, loud and clear, that her role was not to be loved, but to serve. And Christine, being the loyal, faithful woman she was, buried that pain. She convinced herself that it was just nerves, or inexperience, or maybe something she had done wrong. That's the cruelty of it. She turned the blame inward instead of recognizing that Kody had failed her. She thought if she prayed harder, sacrificed more, and proved herself as a devoted wife, maybe he would one day see her, value her, and love her the way she deserved. But that day never came. What began as one disappointing night turned into a pattern of disregard. Christine would later reveal that intimacy with Kody was never about mutual love or connection. It was about his needs, his control, and his satisfaction. That's the part that stings the most. She entered her marriage with innocence and trust, and he chipped away at both piece by piece. Meanwhile, on Sister Wives, fans saw the cheerful, quirky Christine, who joked about loving nachos and tried to keep the family atmosphere light. She played the role she was expected to play, the supportive wife, the devoted mother, the happy plural wife. But behind that smile was a woman quietly breaking. While the cameras showed her as strong and funny, her marriage was a battlefield where she was constantly losing. Contrast that with Kody's behavior. Even in those early years, he displayed the same dismissiveness that would later become impossible to ignore. He was quick to criticize, quick to control, and slow, painfully slow, to offer kindness or validation. Where Christine was open, eager, and giving, Kody was distant, calculating, and self-absorbed. The imbalance was glaring, though it took years for Christine to admit it, even to herself. It's important to understand that Christine wasn't naive, she was devoted. Her faith taught her that enduring hardship was part of her spiritual journey. She believed that staying loyal to Kody, no matter the pain, was her duty as a plural wife. She didn't see leaving as an option. Her entire world, her family, her community, even her sense of identity, told her to stay, endure, and pray that it would get better. And so she did, year after year, swallowing her disappointment, hiding her shame, and convincing herself that she could live without the love she craved. But deep down, those early wounds never healed. That first betrayal, Kody's utter disregard for her on the most intimate level, festered. Every rejection afterward, every dismissive comment, every time he favored another wife over her, it all traced back to that starting point. It was the moment that set the tone for decades of neglect and emotional abuse. Christine had entered her marriage hoping to be a cherished partner, but instead she was reduced to an obligation, a background character in Kody's self-centered story. And that's the tragedy of Christine's early years. She wasn't just betrayed by Kody, she was betrayed by the very system that told her this was holy, that this was God's will. She gave everything, her body, her loyalty, her faith, and in return she received rejection, humiliation, and neglect. Still she stayed, not because she didn't see the pain, but because she believed it was her burden to bear. That's the kind of conditioning polygamy thrives on. Women are taught that their suffering is noble, that their silence is strength. Looking back now, Christine's decision to finally walk away seems almost inevitable, but in those early years, she couldn't see that. All she could see was her faith, her family, and her desperate hope that Kody might one day love her the way she loved him. Sadly, that day never came. Christine's story, as painful as it is, doesn't stand alone. What makes it so powerful is that it fits into a much bigger pattern, a system that shaped the lives of every woman in that family. Polygamy, as it was shown on Sister Wives, wasn't just about sharing a husband. It was about women being told to erase themselves, to suppress their needs, their desires, even their pain, in the name of obedience. It's one thing to compromise in a marriage, but it's another thing to completely deny your humanity, because the system tells you that suffering is holy. From the beginning, the wives were trained to believe that their personal needs didn't matter. Intimacy wasn't for them. Affection wasn't guaranteed. If they felt hurt, they were told to pray harder, or to work on themselves instead of expecting change from Kody. The message was clear. Kody's comfort came first. His desires came first. His authority was never to be questioned. And the wives, they were expected to endure, smile for the cameras, and convince the world that this was a functioning family. Christine's painful revelations about her marriage highlight this system perfectly. Her disappointment wasn't just with Kody, it was with the culture that told her to accept his neglect as normal. She wasn't supposed to ask for tenderness or respect. She was supposed to believe that sacrificing her happiness somehow made her righteous. And she did believe it, for years, because the system was designed to convince her that her suffering was a sign of spiritual strength. But we didn't just see this with Christine. The cracks showed up in Mary's life too, most memorably during the catfishing scandal. Mary was desperate for connection, so desperate that she reached outside the marriage for someone to talk to, someone who would make her feel wanted. And when it all blew up, Kody didn't meet her with empathy or understanding. He humiliated her. He used her mistake as proof that she was unworthy, that she didn't deserve intimacy or partnership anymore. Mary was left isolated, emotionally abandoned, and publicly shamed. Her pain became entertainment for viewers, while Kody walked away untouched, still the head of the family. Then there's Janelle, whose struggles looked different but came from the same place. She often shouldered the financial responsibilities, balancing work and family, while quietly suffering from Kody's emotional neglect. Janelle wasn't looking for constant romance, but even her practical, steady nature couldn't protect her from the imbalance of power. When she voiced concerns, Kody brushed them off. When she wanted independence, he made her feel like she was resisting his authority. It was always about him being in control. And then came Robin. Her entrance into the family changed everything, not because she personally demanded it, but because Kody made it clear, on camera, that she was his priority. Suddenly the favoritism wasn't just suspected, it was undeniable. Kody's time, his affection, his loyalty, all of it shifted toward Robin. The other wives were left to compete for scraps, while Robin was showered with attention and validation. For Christine, that favoritism was devastating. She had already endured years of feeling overlooked, years of convincing herself that if she just held on, Kody might eventually turn toward her. But with Robin in the picture, that hope vanished. Every kiss Kody gave Robin, every holiday spent at her house, every decision that revolved around her kids, it all deepened Christine's realization that she would never be loved equally, never be prioritized, never be truly valued. What's striking about all of this is how the wives' pain was constantly reframed as their own fault. If Christine felt rejected, it was because she wasn't being spiritual enough. If Mary felt lonely, it was because she had made a mistake. If Janelle felt neglected, it was because she didn't appreciate Kody's leadership. The pattern was always the same. The man was never accountable. The women were always to blame. That's the system. That's the control. Christine's revelations ripped that illusion apart. By speaking honestly about her marriage, she exposed how intimacy itself was weaponized, how affection was withheld as punishment, how women were conditioned to accept neglect as normal. Her courage forces viewers to see that this wasn't just about a bad marriage. It was about a structure that keeps women silent, replaceable, and obedient. And when we look at the family as a whole, the evidence is overwhelming. Christine's experience, Mary's humiliation, Janelle's frustration, even the way the kids often noticed and called out the favoritism, it all points to the same truth. The wives were never truly equals. They were pawns in a system built to protect Kody's ego and elevate his chosen favorite. And when one wife tried to speak out, she risked being painted as bitter or rebellious. That's the ultimate silencing tactic, convincing women that demanding respect makes them the problem. Christine broke that cycle. By telling the truth, she made it impossible to pretend that her pain was just a personal weakness. She showed that it was systemic, baked into the very design of their family and their faith. And once she spoke up, the whole narrative shifted. Fans saw through the facade. They began to question not just Kody's treatment of Christine, but the entire foundation of his so-called leadership. That's why Christine's honesty matters so much. Her story isn't just hers. It's the story of every woman in that house who swallowed her needs, silenced her voice, and sacrificed her happiness in the name of obedience. And by exposing it, she turned the tables. She transformed years of control into her ultimate revenge. As the years went on, Christine's marriage didn't heal. It hollowed out. What started as one painful betrayal in the early years became a relentless pattern of rejection. Sister Wives gave viewers an unfiltered window into this struggle, and if you look back, it's astonishing how much Christine endured on camera while trying to keep her dignity intact. The favoritism toward Robyn wasn't subtle. Kody didn't even try to hide it. He spent holidays with Robyn's kids while Christine's children were left waiting. He praised Robyn's obedience while criticizing Christine's independence. He acted like Christine's feelings were a nuisance he didn't have time for. Imagine the heartbreak of seeing your children treated as second class, knowing their father's affection was conditional, based not on love but on loyalty to him and to Robyn's branch of the family. Christine held on as long as she could, but every year chipped away at her spirit. The cameras caught so many moments where you could see it in her eyes, that quiet devastation when Kody ignored her, when he dismissed her kids, when he prioritized Robyn at every turn. For Christine, it wasn't just about her own loneliness. It was about watching her children grow up without the fatherly love they deserved. That pain ran deeper than anything she could put into words. And then there were the cruel comments, the ones that cut the deepest. Christine has openly talked about how Kody criticized her weight, even making jabs about her eating nachos. Something as simple as a plate of food became ammunition in his emotional warfare. Instead of cherishing her for the vibrant, giving woman she was, he reduced her to a punchline, a problem to fix. Kody even admitted he refused to be intimate with her unless she changed herself. Think about how damaging that is, to withhold love and connection until your partner fits a mold you've created in your head. For Christine, intimacy had already been a wound from the beginning. But when Kody tied his affection to her body, her self-worth took hit after hit. Every woman wants to feel wanted, to feel seen, to know that her partner desires her. Kody weaponized that most vulnerable space, turning it into another tool of control. And because Christine was so deeply tied to her faith, she absorbed the blame. She thought if she could just pray harder, or try harder, maybe she would finally be worthy of his love. That's the darkest part of it all. Kody knew exactly where to strike. Christine's faith was her anchor, the thing she held onto through every storm. And instead of honoring that, he exploited it. He framed her disappointment as a spiritual weakness, telling her she wasn't loyal enough, that she wasn't obedient enough, that she wasn't supportive enough. The truth is, Christine was more than enough. But Kody used her devotion as leverage, twisting her faith into a cage she didn't know how to escape. And while Christine was being emotionally starved, Janelle was dealing with her own version of manipulation. Her struggle was centered on finances, where Kody made sure control always landed in his hands. She carried the weight of providing for her kids, yet Kody treated her money like it was family property while funneling resources to Robyn. It's the same playbook, just in a different arena. With Christine, it was intimacy and faith. With Janelle, it was finances and independence. Either way, Kody's tactics were about keeping the women dependent, keeping them doubting themselves, and keeping himself in charge. This wasn't a marriage, it was warfare. A slow, grinding campaign of words, actions, and decisions designed to wear Christine down until she stopped believing in her own worth. And for years it worked. She laughed on camera, she raised her kids with joy, she tried to create moments of happiness in a household where love was rationed. But the cracks were always there. Every time Kody chose Robyn, every time he dismissed Christine's needs, every time he withheld intimacy like a punishment, those cracks spread. Christine's story in these years shows how rejection isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet suffocation, being sidelined in your own marriage, being made to feel invisible in your own home. Kody's neglect wasn't just about what he did, but what he didn't do. He didn't show up, he didn't choose her, he didn't love her, and by refusing, he made her believe she didn't deserve it. Looking back, you can see how all of this was building to Christine's breaking point. She had been trained to endure, but endurance has its limits. The rejection became impossible to hide, even from the cameras, and viewers who once thought she was simply the fun wife began to see her pain, to recognize the courage it took just to keep going. Christine's long struggle wasn't about weakness, it was about survival. She gave everything she had to a marriage that gave nothing back. And in the process, she exposed what many of us already suspected. Kody's love was never unconditional. It was transactional. And for Christine, the cost was her confidence, her self-worth, and years of her life. Every long struggle has a final straw. And for Christine Brown, that moment came in one of the most unforgettable scenes ever aired on Sister Wives. Fans call it the door conversation, and to this day it stands as the turning point where decades of quiet endurance finally collapsed into something Christine could no longer hide. It began with Christine doing what she had always done, trying to make things work. She approached Kody, vulnerable and open, asking the question that had been lingering for years. Could their intimacy be restored? Was there a chance to rebuild that most personal, most sacred bond between them? Christine wasn't asking for luxury, or money, or special treatment. She was asking for love, for connection, for the kind of affection that should come naturally in a marriage. And Kody's response? Brutal. He told her flat out that he had no interest, that the intimacy they once shared was gone, and he had no desire to bring it back. For Christine, those words were like a blade through her heart. After years of rejection, of feeling pushed aside, this wasn't just another cold moment. This was the confirmation she had been dreading all along. Kody did not want her. Not as a partner, not as a wife, not as a woman worthy of love. The power of that scene wasn't just in Kody's cruelty. It was in Christine's reaction. You could see the life drain from her face. She had held on for so long, tried every possible angle to make the marriage survive, convinced herself that if she prayed harder or tried harder, things might change. But in that instant she realized the truth. Nothing she did would ever be enough, because Kody had already decided she wasn't worth choosing. That conversation at the door broke her in a way that nothing else had. This wasn't just rejection, it was finality. It was the symbolic closing of a door, not just physically between them, but emotionally, spiritually, permanently. And in that moment, Christine stopped fighting for something that no longer existed. From there, the unraveling was swift. Fans saw it on screen. The shift in Christine's demeanor, the clarity in her words, the quiet but firm way she began separating herself from Kody's control. This was no longer about saving the marriage. This was about saving herself. For the first time, Christine stopped carrying the shame of rejection and started seeing it for what it really was. Kody's failure, not hers. But Christine didn't stop there. She took the pain of that moment, and of decades of neglect, and turned it into something even more powerful. Her later revelations, especially in her book, pulled back the curtain on everything she had once been too afraid to say. She told the truth about their first night, about the way intimacy with Kody had been cold and selfish from the very beginning. She shared how he withheld affection, how he used rejection as punishment, how he made her believe that her body and her spirit were never enough. These confessions weren't just personal, they were revolutionary. For years, Kody controlled the narrative. He painted himself as the overworked father, the misunderstood husband, the man burdened with too many demands. Christine's honesty shattered that facade. Once she spoke, there was no going back. The image of Kody as a loving patriarch couldn't survive the truth of his cruelty, and this is where Christine's revenge becomes so clear. She didn't need to scream or insult or publicly humiliate him in the way he often humiliated her. All she had to do was tell the truth. The truth was sharper than any insult. It stripped him of the respect he craved, the reputation he clung to, and the authority he demanded. For years, Kody thrived on silence, on the wives keeping their pain private, on their loyalty protecting him from accountability. Christine broke that silence. She gave the world the receipts of her suffering, and in doing so she burned the mask he had worn for so long. But make no mistake, this wasn't just revenge, it was healing. Speaking her truth was Christine reclaiming her power. After years of being told she was unworthy, she finally stood up and said, "No, the problem was never me. It was you." That act of naming the abuse, of exposing the neglect, was the beginning of her freedom, and for millions of viewers it was a wake-up call. That door conversation wasn't just a private marital fight. It became the symbol of every rejection, every manipulation, every moment of control Christine had endured. And by later telling her story in her own words, she ensured it could never be erased or twisted. Kody could no longer hide behind excuses or half-truths. Christine's voice cut through all of it. In the end, what broke Christine also became the moment that remade her. The rejection that once left her crushed became the fuel for her liberation, and the honesty that followed became the ultimate revenge, not just against Kody but against the system that enabled him. Christine's decision to speak was her way of reclaiming her story, her dignity, and her future. When Christine Brown finally closed the door on Kody, she wasn't just leaving a man, she was leaving decades of emotional starvation, rejection, and control. And what came next was nothing short of breathtaking. For the first time in her adult life, Christine was free. Fans watched as she bloomed before our very eyes. Gone was the weary, apologetic woman who carried the weight of a broken marriage on her shoulders. In her place stood someone radiant, laughing louder, smiling brighter, and stepping into her own power. Christine began showing the world what life looks like when a woman chooses herself. And the transformation was undeniable. Her confidence soared. She spoke openly about her journey, not from a place of bitterness but from strength. She took pride in her independence, in her role as a mother who no longer had to beg for her children's worth to be recognized. She built a home filled with love and joy, not control and comparison, and soon she found something even more powerful: romance on her own terms. Christine's relationship with David Woolley became a symbol of her healing. For years, Kody withheld affection, using intimacy as a weapon. With David, Christine discovered the opposite: love that was free, abundant, and secure. Fans could see the difference. This wasn't about proving Kody wrong. It was about Christine finally experiencing the kind of love she always deserved. For the first time, she didn't have to fight for scraps of attention. She was cherished. And that joy lit her up in a way viewers had never seen before. But as Christine rose, Kody collapsed. The contrast couldn't have been starker. The man who once strutted with patriarchal pride began unraveling right in front of the cameras. Estranged from multiple children, lashing out in bitterness, and clinging desperately to the fragments of authority he once had, Kody looked less like the confident patriarch of early seasons and more like a man exposed. The downfall wasn't sudden. It was the slow crumbling of a foundation built on favoritism, neglect, and arrogance. As Christine's story spread, viewers began to see through Kody's excuses. The narrative he once controlled of being the overburdened father, the misunderstood husband, was destroyed by the honesty of Christine's words. She hadn't exaggerated, she hadn't fabricated. She simply told the truth, and the truth was damning. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Where fans once debated the fairness of plural marriage, the focus turned to Kody's behavior. His dismissive comments, his open favoritism of Robin, his cruelty toward Christine, and even his children, none of it could be ignored anymore. Christine's bravery in speaking out gave people permission to call it what it was: emotional abuse. And once that label stuck, Kody's reputation never recovered. Episode after episode, we saw him unravel, angry, defensive, consumed by resentment. Instead of rebuilding connections, he burned bridges. Instead of showing remorse, he doubled down. His children distanced themselves. His wives, one by one, walked away. The once vaunted Brown family empire crumbled before our eyes, and Kody was left holding only bitterness and blame. The symbolism couldn't be clearer. Christine gained her freedom, and in doing so she stripped Kody of the power he once wielded over her and over everyone else. But Christine's story is about more than one woman and one marriage. It's a story about silenced voices finally being heard. For years, Christine stayed quiet, convinced that her pain didn't matter as much as the image of the family or the demands of her faith. That silence protected Kody and allowed the dysfunction to grow. And when Christine finally spoke, she showed women everywhere what it looks like to break free, not just from a man, but from a system that demands your silence to keep itself intact. That's why her story resonates so deeply. Fans didn't just cheer for Christine because she left Kody. They cheered because they saw themselves in her. The years of feeling unseen, the courage it takes to walk away, the healing that comes when you finally choose yourself. Christine's journey is a warning and an inspiration. It warns us of what happens when women's voices are dismissed, when control is disguised as love, when faith is used as a weapon. But it also inspires us to believe that no matter how long you've been trapped, freedom is possible, healing is possible, joy is possible. Christine's freedom and Kody's downfall are forever linked, not because she set out to destroy him, but because telling the truth destroyed the lies he built his life on. And that is the most powerful revenge of all. So as we look back at this incredible transformation, one thing is clear: Christine's decision to walk away wasn't just the end of her marriage. It was the beginning of a revolution, not only for her family, but for every viewer who saw themselves in her story. And now, I want to hear from you. What did Christine's journey mean to you? Did you see yourself in her struggle, her courage, her transformation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you've been following along with us, don't forget to hit subscribe and join this community, where we keep the conversation going and make sure these stories are never forgotten. Because Christine's story isn't just about sister wives, it's about all of us. Christine Brown's courage will always stand as one of the most powerful moments in sister wives history. By telling the truth unfiltered, unpolished, and from her own heart, she not only freed herself from years of neglect, but also shattered the illusion that Kody worked so hard to maintain. For decades, her silence protected him, but her voice, once unleashed, exposed everything. And in doing so, Christine became a symbol of resilience for every woman who has ever been dismissed, ignored, or told her pain wasn't valid. Her story reminds us that the damage caused by men like Kody doesn't fade quietly. It leaves scars on wives, on children, on families forced to live under systems of control. But Christine also showed us that scars don't define us. Strength does. And in her laughter, her joy, her love with David, we see what healing truly looks like when a woman finally chooses herself. That's why her journey matters. It isn't just reality TV drama, it's a mirror reflecting the struggles so many face in silence. And it's proof that telling the truth can set you free, even if it takes decades to find the courage. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If Christine's story moved you, if it made you reflect on your own life or opened your eyes to the deeper damage caused by Kody's actions, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. This community is a space where your voice matters. And don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and join us here on TLC's Sister Wives Daily for more honest, thoughtful conversations about the stories that continue to shape the Brown family and all of us who have followed their journey. Christine's freedom is her legacy, Kody's downfall is his, and as we close today, I want to leave you with this. The truth may take time, but once spoken, it has the power to change everything. Christine proved that, and that's why we'll never stop talking about it.